You know what, actually, I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Okay, so it's for four. Oh, this is an actual physical coral reef texture. I hate sites like this. This stuff is almost always a trick. Free download. Not the thing you're looking at, just some random free download that you probably don't want. Whatever.
So are you going to show how to download it and put it into, are those from Maya?
They're just images. So,
Um,
and that one is not free. Okay, whatever. I am going to not worry about that. Let's try this. C4 texture. That might work. That's pretty cool. Not what I was looking for, but it's cool. Okay, that. If I can use that right now. But I turned off Adobe Stock. If you have Adobe Stock on, you might find stuff in Adobe Stock. I didn't have very much luck with it. Um, yeah, these aren't really what I'm looking for either. Something like this can be useful for the gobo light that I was talking about earlier. Um, as long as you're not animating, because it's just a still image, it's not going to work in an animation. You have to do this in a procedural way, or just as long as you can get an animation out of it. So none of this is what I'm looking for, not surprisingly for me. Also not what I'm looking for. Let's go back over to images here. Let me change this, see if we get better results with the word free in front of it. when you're looking for any kind of image like this, you don't want anything that was shot at an angle. This will do you no good. This doesn't look right as what I'm trying to do. You want something that's shot straight on. Underwater sand, maybe that's not too bad. Ground texture, that's maybe gonna work. That might not be too bad either. Open image in new tab. We could try this one too. Save image as, and check the format. I just want to reiterate, check the format. So JPEG, I know will work fine in Maya, but those new ones that keep popping up lately, JFIF and WebP, I don't know if Maya reads those. So again, to reiterate, if you want to use one of those, you can always just right click on it and save it. Copy images, sorry, not save it, copy image, go over to Photoshop and do a new image from clipboard, and then do a paste or Control V, Command V on Mac. Anything, almost always anything that's Control on PC is Command on Mac. And so this will work well as a bump texture as well. Um, so you can use it on both channels probably. I think I'm going to save it as a reduced contrast for the bump. Do a PNG. Targa is a good choice too. I've been using PNG today, so I'll just stick with what I've been doing here. So seafloor PNG, and then I'm going to do a, well, we could just go to contrast here, brightness and contrast. Take the contrast down. That's not enough. That is not doing enough. Let's go to levels. The bump maps quite often seem to come in too strong on Maya, almost always. I've got to tone them way down. I don't know why that is, but it's like they've got 1,000% intensity by default, even though it says 100. It's way too high. So it's called a seafloor bump. So, and I can show any, I might show both of these or, okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I am going to, this comes with a material automatically, and you've got my dog's here saying hi to me. Hi, go lay down. Go on. Please don't knock anything over. So this just is what Mudbox calls it for whatever reason, and I'm gonna, yeah, seafloor film. And it really shouldn't be Fong. The seafloor isn't really shiny. It should probably be Lambert. And I'm going to create, oh, okay, reflected color. There is no, there's no, it had a reflection setting when I changed it from Fong to Lambert, and there's no, God bless America. There's no reflection setting on Lambert. There is on phone, but there's not on Lambert. That's what I'm trying to say. Good Lord. Okay. Um, so we'll start with the color map, and um, I'll just go ahead and put this on a file and select seafloor. And that'll be a good start for seafloor. So, and this is a big image. It might take a moment. I also need to turn on lighting and stuff. So, might as well create my first light. And I'm going to do a sky dome light. Kind of odd. Not exactly what I was expecting. Go ahead and open the Arnold renderer. Yeah, okay, that looks right. Change the default render to Arnold. Couple more samples here. We do not need subspace scattering samples. Volume, we're going to be using volume. So I'll pump those up a little bit. Cool. Now I'm going to do a smaller render. I'm going to do a test resolution of 50, which apparently I already had set, so that's good. And we're going to make this underwater, so I'm going to push the color temperature into the blue area just a little bit, which means warmer when you're talking about physics. And okay, yeah, I'll get more into skeletons next week again. We can go back to rigging. So I think I'm actually going to even go smaller. Do a test resolution of 25%, which as you can see is of course very pixelated. Just getting an idea of the hide the, no, I don't want to hide it. Isolate select. There we go. Okay, fine. But yeah, I'll get more into rigging again next week. Okay, so the actual demo that was scheduled for today was Paintfx, so I should probably talk about Paintfx a little bit. And we talked about this a little bit before. Um, Paintfx is under the effects menu, and I want to say, isn't it under the effects menu? Is it? No, it's under the modeling menu. Okay, sure. Paintfx is under modeling, right? I knew that. And I'm looking for Paintfx tool and get brush. Sometimes you have to make a surface paintable. Usually you can just paint on it, but sometimes you have to make it paintable. And so I'm going to look through mostly the Paintfx brushes is what I'm looking for. That might be interesting to play with. underwater. It's probably a good idea to start. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the anemone branches. Say that 10 times fast. Anemone branches. I'm going to do this from a top view here. Turn on the Paintfx tool. The key to change your brush size is B. You hold down B and I think I'm behind the camera. You hold down B and then click and drag. Let's look at this in perspective. Kind of got a lot of stuff on the screen right now. I'm going to put this in my second monitor over here. I'm just keeping the get brushes window open um, as a convenience. So, and remember, Paintfx do not render in Arnold. You have to convert them to polygons. Oh, not, it's Paintfx to polygons. That's not really what I meant to do. Try to get something just a little smaller. Get it closer to on camera. Maybe I should make a shortcut for this if I'm going to be doing a lot of this, because you're going to be converting those Paintfx a lot. Hmm. Bubbles. Let's do some bubbles. It's in there, so why not? Paintfx to polygons. So, and don't, of course, take this as an excuse to not model anything, but it's a tool. Use it. Might as well. If I center pivot. Did I convert this already? Yeah. So, I think that's, enough of an underwater scene at the moment to kind of get the point across. So I'm going to go ahead and do my volume light now. So I'll create the spotlight and size that up so I can see what's going on. Do you guys see what that penumbra angle does, by the way? Like, if it's at 0, you've got a hard edge on the spotlight. If it's higher, the edge softens up in the outward direction. If it's negative, the edge softens up in the inward direction. And you should almost always use decay on your lights. There aren't many exceptions. I go with kind of a cyan color at the moment. I might change that, but I think that's going to work pretty well. Now I got to go down to the Arnold settings and get it working in Arnold. I'm going to do a look through selected and change the angle a little bit. See how low resolution this is? It's really, really low. Right now I'm just trying to get a feel for what the lights are going to look like. And this is going to be, turn off cast volumetric shadows on that, and turn off cast shadows at all. So I want the effects of the light to be in the scene, but I don't want to see the sky dome. So I'm going to put the camera at 0. That's what that means, is if the camera's at 1, you can see the light. Nothing changes about the lighting, but it's kind of like, it's a little bit like the first, the default lights, the legacy lights, sometimes they're called. Like you put the light in the scene and you can't see it, but you can see the effects of it. And we're not doing subsurface scattering, so I might as well save the processor power. And indirect light, I'm going to bump up on this one because the sky dome is all about the indirect lighting, and we're not using any volume light from the sky dome. So let's go back to the render settings and go ahead and turn on the fog light. I don't know where these are coming from, but I like them. I think maybe those are bubbles. Sometimes you get like little artifacts. They can be maddening sometimes, but if they're doing what you want them to, then they're nice. So that's a little bit high, maybe. A little too yellow. Get a little more blue. And maybe I'll keep the render settings handy as well. I think I'm done with my Paintfx brushes, but this again, these are the underwater brushes. And you also might get some mileage out of like grasses and uh, some of the different foliage things. This is, we're looking fairly well here. Do you want to have, I think, a different angle on this volumetric cone, but I think I want to have it, I think I want to do that last. So, and take down the saturation on the light a little bit. Cool. Now, um, now what do I want to do? I do want to have this kind of pointing at the camera a little bit more. To get that incoming ray look. Is that too much? I think it's probably okay. So, and like if I were really trying to get this up to production quality, I would probably do something with the seams between the ground plane and where these anemones sprout up. And that could be as simple as just putting a texture there or like some kind of mound or, just something that covers it up. right now, for the purposes of this demo, I am not going to deal with that. We're already down to 25 minutes left. So the next move is what I was talking about with underwater lighting. I'm working in pretty broad strokes here. I'm not dealing with the details too much, but um, we're going to want one of those gobo lights I was talking about last time. Because we're looking for lighting that looks more like this. So this is the type of image you're looking for. Something that's black and white. Let's see what we can find here. This would be pretty good, but I don't think it's free. So that's not a very good resolution either. Okay, there's that one. Hmm, cool. So it has to be in motion if you're going to be animating, like I said before, which I'm not going to really deal with right now, but I did want to take the opportunity to point that out again. So I think I'm going to have to go with that first one that I found. Oh, this one looks pretty good. Smaller resolution. So procedural caustics might be the best way to go, especially if you're animating, but yeah, okay. Open image in new tab. Image. So this is not an ideal, oh, I didn't put that bump map on. This is not an ideal resolution here, but um, we're just going to go with it. So, and I also need to put that bump map on the ground plane. Okay, so I'm going to call this underwater global light. That'll work. So let's go back first, and if you change the material type, it gets rid of your name. I had to go to the bump map now and go to File. I don't have to project this or anything because it's basically just a plane. When you make something in mudbox, it's already UV mapped, and that's pretty nice. So we don't have to get into that yet. And this bump depth is always, well, like I said, 1.0 is pretty high. So, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Go over to File, and I'm going to load the seafloor bump. You probably won't even really see it in this image very much. And I'm going to change this to like a 0.2 bump depth. And if you want it to push in, you can change that to a negative value. Okay, so the light, the spotlight, is going to have, put that. Let's try first of all. I'm going to try it on the exposure channel and see what happens. Underwater gobo light. Okay. I think that needs to be higher intensity. Okay. Okay, that's not working the way I wanted it to. Let's just kill that. Break the connection. Change the exposure back to 5. Let's try putting it on the intensity. Actually, I should just link the existing file node that I already made. But whatever. I'll probably do that. Exposure. Err. My other guess is diffuse, and if this is not the right guess, I should probably stop fumbling around on this and figure it out later. Okay, so I'm confusing myself on what channel to put this in. I'm gonna just leave it for now and figure that out and put that back in next week or something like that. So, and I did want to kind of change this to sort of a more of a not so much an underwater scene, but spotlight. Uh-oh, did I lose it? I think Maya might have just crashed. Ah, it crashed. Did not appreciate me deleting that light. Let's see how much of my scene was saved. I never saved it once. Actually, we need to, let's just go back to my box. There might be something in here under scene recovery because Maya is much nicer these days. But the box didn't crash, so let's just send selected at the current level. I create a camera. That's interesting. Yeah, look at that, the geometry got. Geometry got messed up. Didn't notice it before. That's one of the things that the smooth tool also helps with, or the relax tool. Sometimes your sculpture can turn inside out depending on what you're doing with it. Um, I'm just going to pretend it's not there for now. Just point my camera the other way. So we can play with that later. Okay, so I'm going to do more of a kind of a forest look. So, and I wanted to show like with those, the first thing I downloaded from Ambient CG, it has a color map and then it has a bunch of other maps that go along with it. Like you can use displacement with it. Um, you can put a map on your normals and a map on the roughness. There's an ambient occlusion map. Those things might not all necessarily make sense right away, but um, a lot of times there's different channels that you can put these maps on. And that was what I was going to say was the third thing that I really like about ambient CG is because it uses all of those channels, or not necessarily all, but it uses a lot more than just the color channel anyway. And that can be really nice. Let's do color temperature. This one, I am going to have the sky and maybe I'll come back to that foam later. There's also a way of lighting using these outdoor images, and some of the best ones you can really use are HDR images, and that will really make quite the light. It's really cool the way it does it. Let's see if I can find one for forest, then that would be perfect. So maybe one of these will work really well. And this is how you light with an image. Don't get the JPEG. You want the HDR. And um, as always, I go to the biggest one. And while that's downloading, because we are pretty low on time, we're going to pretend like you know what you're doing with the um, oh heck, generate. There it is. Get brush. So go. That works. Convert Paintfx to polygons. I might be crazy, but it looks like that's kind of floating in the air, maybe. Probably doesn't need to be right in front of the camera. Center pivot. So many menu functions to keep track of. Okay, boom, forest. Now, before I do this, Arnold, sky dome, light, HDR image. Let's make sure I'm putting it on the right thing. HDR stands for high dynamic range, by the way. So, sky dome it has a texturable color slot so that you can use the texture for the IBL, image-based light. And then the high definition, whatever they're called, high dynamic range, that's it. High dynamic range lights are the best choice. It'll take JPEGs and PNGs and all that stuff, but high dynamic images are a better choice than those other, standard formats. We'll probably just slap this on and take a look at what it looks like, and then that'll be about it for today. But this can do so much to your scene. It's really nice. So according to those docs, it should go right on the color channel. So I'm going to put it on the color channel. Everything goes black because there's no file. And it should know what to do with these files. Maya knows what to do with HDR files. So click on that, let it load. This is a very high resolution file, so it might take a minute. What this is going to look like in the preview window, I don't know. Interesting. So that is maybe a little high on the intensity still. Or at least that's the way it looks in the render view here. Whoops. Now it's way too high. Render view. I'll give it a test resolution of 50%. That is not what I want you to render. Transmission, diffuse, make sure to save. Turn off subsurface scattering. In direct, we're going to turn that up a little bit on the sky dome. And I don't think I'm going to get to the volume lighting on this one, but I kind of wish I could have made it look a little better than that. Doing any portals, so that doesn't matter. So I don't think that was really the best example of what this can do because it doesn't really show you a whole lot, but it does look pretty incredible. But I'm going to leave it at that because we're out of time. So I'll probably be playing with this more next week along with some rigging.